There are almost 300 million youth and children, who are out of school in the world. In that number, 10.5 million are found in Nigeria. And this number may rise because of the security challenge Nigeria is dealing with now, because almost daily children are being kidnapped from their schools. Our conversation hovers around the Safe School program. Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulai. The world's first Safe School program was launched in Nigeria on May 7, 2014, following the abduction of 276 schoolgirls from Chibok, Borno State, in northeast of Nigeria. The Safe School initiative was meant to reach 500 schools, with the governments of Germany, Norway, and African Development Bank backing that initiative. Nigerians have been asking questions. Where's the money meant for the safe schools? Are the schools safe? The government of Muhammad Buhari has not supported the Safe School program as a policy priority, and this has ensured that the schools have been victims of various attacks by bandits and terrorists. Many say it is the responsibility of the state government to protect their schools. But in the face of damning security realities, questions have emerged about the true situation of things with the Safe School program. Every school in Nigeria today is at the risk of terrorist or bandits attack. Nigerian schools are unsafe, and education is coming at the cost of souls, and questions are still left unanswered. Now, joining me now to look at this is retired Commodore Abimbola Ayuba. He is a security and risk consultant. He joins me now, and of course, Stan-Labo will also join me. He's a retired colonel in the Nigerian Army, now a security consultant. Gentlemen, good to have you both with me here on the square.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's really not the best of moments for Nigerians and Nigerians, more so now that the schools have become an unsafe place for learning. Let me start quickly with you, Stan-Labo. This is one issue that bothers many Nigerians that actually can break everyone. But again, it comes to a point where everyone must be about how to get out of this whole mess. Now, the question should be, is the Safe School program the way forward to protecting our pupils, or there are alternatives?
Well, I wouldn't say, thank you, first of all, Suleiman.
You're welcome, go ahead.
Thank you for having me, frankly. I wouldn't say it is the only, I wouldn't say it's the only option, so to speak, but I think it complements whatever other protective arrangements we might be putting in place to protect our schools. And of course, like you would agree with me, the Safe School program is such a comprehensive package, which if only...
Well, I think we just got
the right leadership.
I got a glitch there. I lost that connection to you a moment there, Colonel Labo. I hope we can reconnect and get a better network. Let me go to Commodore Ayuba. Looking at what we're dealing with at the moment, for Stan-Labo, he said, well, it's not the only thing to do, but there are other alternatives. But again, I want you to give us an assessment or reevaluate what Nigeria has been doing in terms of putting security in schools since after Chibok experience.
Thank you very much, Sulai. The Safe School initiative put in place on the 7th of May 2014 was visualized to build capacity to protect school children following the Chibok kidnaps. And of course, with all the efforts going into 2015, where stakeholders funding forum was held, nothing significant has been had since the 2015 funding measures. Although in Borno, there are visible efforts that some of the schools are being made safer, particularly in Borno itself and some of the key states around Borno. But of course, in Adamawa and Yobe, the program could not progress very, very much. So the question is, what happened to the funding that has been secured so far to prosecute the state safe school program? It appears as if there's little political will to further the prosecution of the program. Hence, the reversals that we see in the multiple kidnappings that we now experience in all over Nigeria.
You know, the thing here is, we're trying to understand. Now, you asked a very, very vital question, as many other Nigerians have asked, and that has to do with the money budgeted for the program. Now, looking at what we have at the moment, looking at schools in some of this locality, it would seem as if the governor of Borno State, which is in southeast of Nigeria, in the thick of things, have been able to, get it right in terms of protecting schools around the state. Are there things the state is doing that other states in Nigeria should actually look into in terms of, reviewing notes?
Yes, Sulai, the Borno State governor is, to my mind, one of the most performing governors in Nigeria today, because he appears to, with his team, have a strong focus on providing safe schools and providing infrastructure in that state. So it's a model that other state governors should really try to emulate. But we've seen in most of the other kidnap cases, the state of schools in Kankara, we've seen how terrible the schools are. Some of the schools don't even have fences, and the hostels are in very dilapidated conditions. So it tends to suggest that priority is not being given to education, talk less of providing security, as it were, for these numerous children, thereby complicating the issues of out-of-school children, which is already a dilemma in Nigeria at the moment. So the governors of the state have to be held responsible for not doing enough to ensure that these schools are made safe, or at least move some of the students to safer areas where they can provide a comprehensive security in the intervening period.
The thing here, Commodore Ayuba, is looking at some of the issues that we're dealing with now. You also made mention of perimeter fencing, and have also said the governor in that part of Nigeria is doing well. Nigeria has been more or less reactive than being proactive in terms of protecting its schools. Now, are there things that schools, especially the private schools and also the government schools, should have been doing? Because we're trying to understand, how porous schools in Nigeria, especially around the northern axis, have become for people to walk in, unchallenged. and take students in their numbers straight into the bushes. So what are those key things that schools should start looking at, more so even the students, some kind of orientation for the students that can help them identify some trouble and know what to do when it does break?
Yes, thank you very much. You are very right. But the better way to start is by conducting frequent security awareness education for both the students and also the staff of the schools, the teachers and the admin staff of the schools on one hand, and of course also the schools must now begin to look at beyond the perimeter fencing and providing concertina wires and all sort of obstacles to delay or at least delay penetration through the walls. Access control is critical, that the kind of doors and the kind of windows and the materials used in protecting, building these schools need to be reviewed. And of course, the issue of safe shelter stations in terms of emergency, ability to raise alarm, the alarm systems in schools where the sirens can alert people within 2-3 kilometers of the school that there's something awkward going on. And of course, there's supposed to be a kind of rapid reaction elements tied to the nearest police or military formation, specifically meant for school protection. I cannot see any special squad meant for school protection at the moment.
Let me leave it there. I'll come back so that you can stretch it. Let me quickly bring in Stan-Labo. He's back again. Good to have you back again, Stan-Labo. And again, apologies for that glitch. It does happen when it has to do with technology. Now, we're looking at, you were actually trying to look at some other means, some other things that schools and the governments, local, state, and even the national government can do in protecting schools. Commodore Ayuba did mention drills for the students so that they can understand such drills and understand when they see trouble in their schools. What are those other things that we should have around schools in Nigeria and even other parts of the continent?
Thank you so much. Well, I never had when Commodore Abimbola actually was discussing because I was off air. Whatever the case, I want to believe he has been able to take care of a good number of the issues,
Absolutely.
which has to do with fencing, surveillance equipment, need for security posts to be quite close to the schools, and of course the positioning of security men on the spot, right on the spot in the schools, of course, and the need also, I would say, and this is very important, there is a need for us to beef up the resilience capacity of the communities within which these schools are within, are situated. In most cases, beefing their capacity against bandits, because the point is that a good number of these schools and the communities are found in ungoverned spaces, far, located outside major cities, especially when you look at a state like Niger State, which is virtually, I think, about the biggest state now. There are nearly half of Niger State is ungoverned. And we have schools scattered all over there. Such communities, we must look for a means of seeing how we enhance the capacity or the resilience capacity of communities against bandits, okay? There is a need also maybe for government to begin to consider the need for reissuance or we bringing back the issuance of license to, I would say, low weaponry, like what do we call this weapon now? Oh my God, it's used mostly by hunters and so on. There's a need for us to begin to issue out licenses, okay? So that community members could have some level of capacity to be able to challenge these bandits when they are on ground. In most cases, members of communities are completely helpless, or let me say Nigerians are helpless. The situation now, the way it is such that if communities are not armed to some extent, I don't see how we can check this. We have issues with manpower, and so let me not go outside the scope you have given me. The point is that whatever I've talked about, we go to complement whatever Gordon Brown's team had given us in terms of safe school program. All these issues, all these other items of issues I've raised are only meant to complement that. But unfortunately, we do not have a government that is hell-bent on implementing Gordon Brown's team, Gordon Brown's advice or the safe school program given to us by Gordon Brown. If we are able to find a government, especially at the center, that is ready to implement this, it will be fine. Because as we speak, unfortunately, I didn't listen to my senior colleague, Commodore Abimbola. But I hope I'm not repeating some of the things he has said.
No, certainly. Let me come in here. First, you said, I hope you've not gone out of the scope. The truth is that this is very important for the continent and Nigeria. Even if you decide to stretch it, is welcome, because it's a thing that bothers every Nigerian and African. And we're talking about the future of a country being plucked in their prime in the quest for education, and that is why we're having this conversation. And again, I really must thank both of you for giving your expertise on this. So I think we're on course. But quickly here, let me bring in the other angle. I want Ayuba to weigh in here, then I'll also take your views on this, Labo. The thing has to do with the hostels. We have come to realize that most of the schools that have been attacked in Nigeria are those with boarding facilities. Let us start looking at boarding facilities. Labo has said quite a number of things that can also be done in some of these schools. But do you think that the government in these places where schools have been attacked by criminal elements have done pretty well to forestall such attacks in the hostels?
That's for me, Sulai. To my mind, most of the states where these kidnapping incidents have taken place, it is very clear that the boarding schools are far from being in humane and habitable conditions. And of course, sadly too, we see that some of the infrastructure is collapsing. You see some of the hostels without windows, talk less of having burglar proofs or any other strong doors. The floors have caved in, and it indicts straight away the character and quality of such governments that claim to have education, good education as part of their policies in this age and time, Sulai.
Labo, you know, talking about the hostels, the boarding facilities, one would have thought that maybe there must be a kind of review of policies, hostel policies, in the light of recent events. Tell us, are there things that you think the states aren't doing that has caused the exposure of these very young ones to criminals? As highlighted by you, but some of these hostels don't have windows, let alone perimeter fencing and security men to watch over them?
Thank you, Suleiman. I must confess to you that I feel highly embarrassed as a Nigerian whenever most of these schools where these attacks have taken place, whenever most of these schools are beamed on television, especially by international televisions and so on, you get embarrassed as a Nigerian, especially if you are sitting in midst of foreigners. These schools look like refugee camps. In fact, refugee camps are better. You see some of these schools and you wonder if actually you mean children sit and take lessons in these schools. I wouldn't even allow my dog to sleep in some of the environment I see in some of these schools. So we begin to ask ourselves, what are these governors doing with the resources voted for education in their states? If schools are not renovated, there are no good ventilation arrangements, not to talk of toiletries and whatever. Some of the schools have no toilets. The kids defecate around within the bushy areas around, and so on. It's unfortunate, so unfortunate. These schools, the condition in the schools must be enhanced. We are not even talking of fencing now, which should have been a priority. A school that is holding about 1,000 pupils is unfenced in a very large, absolute, completely hidden area, and there is a governor in that state, there's a commissioner of education, there are directors in that ministry. Jesus Christ, what are they doing with the resources? Most of these things are being exposed to a lot of Nigerians now that these developments are unfolding. We are beginning to see actually governors who are actually paying lip service to education, like most of my governors in the North, and those who are actually paying good service to education. It's unfortunate. Some of these children, is it because they are children of the poor? Can the governor's children attend such schools? Can we just, for heaven's sake, at least be able to see that we bring some measure of the social contract which the government has with the people? We see how much of it we can bring.
Commodore Labo, I want to stay with you. Do you think that these states have the capacity to actually and truly protect the schools?
They might not have the kinetic capacity to protect the schools, but it does not prevent them from carrying out other non-kinetic measures like erecting or fencing the schools, okay? Making necessary provisions for surveillance. Can those schools have CCTV cameras? Can those schools have policemen attached to them with a small police force very close by? What does it cost a governor to provide one Hilux vehicle for a school with about 1,000 students and take care of the feeding of 3 or 4 policemen posted to that school? Is that too much? What is he doing with his security grant? Tomorrow they will tell you they are not the chief security officers of the state. How many of them have returned their security grant back to the state coffers? How many? You pocket it, but you are ready to tell me you are not the chief security officer. Let's be serious in this country.
You know,
if you are ready to go into governance, then you take the business of governance serious. If you are ready to go into governance, then you take the oath you swore to meet every ingredient of the social contract you are signing with the people, or we have gone into with the people, and deliver on it.
You know, Commodore Ayuba, you know, listening to Stan-Labo, I think the passion, a lot of Nigerians across, board, whether you're a politician, whether you are an ordinary Nigerian there, they are wondering what exactly is happening. Now, tell us, because even before now, the fences were not there in most of the schools. When you went to school, I'm quite sure some of those schools were in open field. But again, this is quite new, what Nigeria is dealing with at the moment. There are so many stories of people being kidnapped and indoctrinated into terrorism and banditry. Commodore Ayuba, do you think this is a targeted, effort, by these bandits to indoctrinate these young Nigerians into a continuous and never-ending, terrorism in Nigeria?
Thank you, Sulai. Honestly, I share the passion of Colonel Stan-Labo. As in answering your question, we are all aware that the Boko Haram started its campaign by saying no to Western education. So the dilemma that had confronted management's proper responses to school security border around the confusion in nomenclatures or paradigms. When it suits us, we call people who are criminals, gunmen. Sometimes we call them names that sometimes are impossible. Purely Boko Haram had extended its tentacles to most of the North Central by default under the canopy of banditry, which had been tolerated by most of the state governors. While some governors are putting their foot down that they are not going to pay ransom to kidnappers and bandits, some were busy gallivanting and offering amnesty to criminals who have killed and who have destroyed, who have plundered and discouraged our young population from reaching their aspirations as a legitimate and Nigerian who want to have. I believe that all these efforts are also in pursuance and furtherance of the terrorist agenda, and all these trends tend to permeate the entire Sahel and fanning down to our country. And there's need for an emergency measure to be taken at the national level to declare emergencies for not just for schools, but in the nation against terror. Unless we do this, we will be acting in silos while thinking only about safe schools. What about safe communities? What about safe people? What about safe commercial areas? What about safe airports and all that? So we need to declare emergency, and it should not be business as usual, because it looks to me as if there's no shame and there's no definition of the threshold of which no Nigerian must descend. How many more Nigerians have to be killed? How many other children in school have to be kidnapped and murdered? And people continue to go on condolence visits, whereas they've taken an oath to protect and provide for the welfare of the citizenry. It is unacceptable, and I believe that it is time that a national emergency is declared against terror in its totality.
Well, we'll take a moment. While we come, I want Stan-Labo to give us his, react to what you've just said, declaring a state of emergency on security in some of these places, as well as also look towards security networks strictly for the protection of schools in some of the, these places in Nigeria. That's when we return. Join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching Village Square Africa here on News Central Television. We're looking at the spate of kidnapping in schools in Nigeria. Now, if you look at some of the states in Nigeria, specifically Niger, Katsina, Borno, Yobe, Benue, and other states, they've been victims of the abduction of students. A timeline of student abduction in Nigeria leaves nothing to savor, with the bandits and terrorists growing in confidence by the day. Already many Nigerians are asking their children to leave school and return home, especially those in the north. These aren't good times. And of course, as highlighted before the break, our guests have reminded Nigerians of what Boko Haram did say at the point when they struck first then in Chibok, saying Western education is evil. And, you know, these are definitely not the best of times. Once again, thanks for joining us again, Colonel Hassan Stan-Labo and Commodore Abimbola Ayuba. Thank you for spending time with us. Quickly, as we coast home here, I wanted you to react before we went to that break, but also chew on this. Stan-Labo, you know, is the government responsible for the protection of private institutions as well? Yeah, constitutionally, we know that's the business of government, but it would seem as even the private schools are left unprotected, while also the government schools are also left unprotected.
Section 42, Section 14.2b, which of course talks about what I often refer to as the social contract, talks about the protection, availing protection to citizens, okay? And also providing for their welfare and all the rest of. That section did not differentiate between whether private or public schools. Whatever the case, I am not saying that government should go down and begin to carry out certain basic functions which proprietors of private schools are supposed to carry out. But generally, availing protection to the citizen is the job of the government. Okay? And then, of course, too, I expect that government would set out the template to these private schools as to what is expected of them to put in place. In the course of their seeking license to set up their schools, I believe that normally government would extend to them certain breakdowns, certain templates, which they're expected to follow. Lay down protocol, whether it has to do with security or what have you. And then, of course, the onus also rests on government to ensure that there is a monitoring team that goes around to be sure that these things are in place. All that oversighting responsibilities falls within the ambit of the government, okay? And that is the extent to which I think the government can play a role in the security of the private schools, while government fully embodies all responsibility for public schools. Either way, government has failed. We are not seeing such roles being played for public schools. Neither are we seeing most of our private schools too also, adhering to some of these protocols. Who is to blame? Of course, it is the government.
You know, have you, let me bring in Abimbola Ayuba. Have you noticed a progression in this criminal act? First, it was with, junior high school and high school, and it has now moved into university. Can we get into the minds of these criminals for once and try to uncover what they're working at?
Certainly, it's the progression is systematic, and it's been discovered that now the universities are now the prime targets of the criminals or terrorists, as I would like to call them. primarily if they capture students of the university level who are adults and who are probably men or women, they fail to get the required ransoms that they demand for, they will have ability to indoctrinate those who have not been paid, whose ransoms have not been paid for. So they begin to add up to the numbers of their fighting forces. And of course, the women will know how badly they have been treated all along. So it looks as if the attack is against the entire spectrum of the educational system in Nigeria, because no institution has been spared. Institutes of technology, colleges of education, agric engineering, virtually name the school, none has been spared, and who knows which other school is being targeted next. And so it is clear that we are seeing an upscale in a terrorist agenda as we move gradually into the rainy seasons, and of course, as we inch closer to 2023, which has now occupied the thinking and the minds of most of our leaders who are supposed to deliver on the mandates which is still ongoing and current, are already jostling for 2023, whereas the mandate they sought from the people is still ongoing, and unfortunately, they have not been able to deliver on their promised mandate, which they took on oath.
Stan-Labo, not a good time for Nigerians, this week, more so yesterday, when news of two students of Greenfield University, the bodies were found ostensibly being, murdered by their captors, making total number of 5. Listening to both of you, one would try to analyze that if students in secondary schools are being kidnapped, perhaps they're trying to indoctrinate these young ones. But for those in university, that just might be difficult. But the Kaduna example is one I wanted to weigh in on here now, Labo. Has this got to do with anything the governor has decided to do, saying, inasmuch as this persists, I will not have any dealing with the bandits in terms of ransom payment. And now we're getting to see an upscale, an upsurge in kidnapping in Kaduna State. Tell us how this works for a state as Kaduna, where the governor should have all the support from Nigerians and say, look, criminals are criminals. We don't have any kind of business with these criminals.
Thank you so much. The current developments in Kaduna is as a result of the fact that the governor has taken a resolute position, resolute stand, that there will be no negotiations. And deliberately, these guys are zeroing in on Kaduna State, so as to probably want to let the governor know that, well, if you think you wouldn't negotiate, we are going to deal with you. This is the time for the entire nation state to avail the governor the necessary support. There will be no more negotiations. To hell with them. We must call their bluff. If we don't call their bluff at the point, I can assure you, Suleiman, they will begin to dictate the terms for us. We must call their bluff. We must tell them, go ahead, do what you think you are doing. We are not going to negotiate. And we stand on our grounds that we cannot negotiate. Why doing this anyway? We should ensure that we are putting in place all necessary protective measures over the schools. We should also ensure, which is unfortunate because I keep saying it, we do not have a government at the center that is hell-bent, that is resolute enough to crush terrorism in Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned. It's my personal opinion, and I've taken it, and that's where it stands. We are yet to have a serious government that really wants to crush terrorism. We are not yet serious about fighting terrorism. I don't want to go take on that line of argument because it drag me into the issue of Pantamier and so on. That's the minister, the terrorist minister who is a member of the cabinet as we speak, or who has sympathy for terrorism. Okay, for a government that is serious, by now that guy should be somewhere in the cooler and being interrogated by the DSS. Let's not go into all that. We continue to show sympathy towards elements who are sympathetic with terrorism on ground, which is unfortunate. When you are fighting a cause like this, every move of yours, every line of action must indicate your seriousness towards it. You cannot be speaking from both sides of the mouth and expect people to take it serious. It's not possible.
You know, now you have raised this issue. Well, anyway, I think I don't think it's nice to have also labeled him a terrorist minister, which is not. But again, his affiliation with the group is what you should stick. I mean, his affiliation in times past, in terms of his preachings, which he did say. I want you to quickly look at this before I move to. Ayuba. He's not come forward to deny that. He said, well, some of the things he said as a youth are regretted. And in moving forward, what are those things you expect of the government of President Buhari to have done, you know, since Nigerians are calling for his sack?
Relieve him of his appointment as a clear indication that we are serious about fighting terrorism. He's not the only one. There are a few of them, a good number of them out there. Relieve him of his appointment as a clear indication that I am serious about fighting terrorism.
There's first cause. Sorry to butt in there. There's first cause in all of this. For you to get an appointment in Nigeria, there must be some security background checks. Shouldn't we also be asking the question, how was he cleared in the first place? How is it that it is some ordinary Nigerians that have been able to uncover his past in the face of what the security and intelligence of the government failed to get?
Suleiman, you are coming to an issue I would have really loved to discuss if only we have enough time. But the point is this. In the first place, who cleared him? Look, that's why I say we don't have the right leadership to fight terrorism. Because on this matter, several heads would have rolled by now. Several top functionaries by now would have lost their position. Who cleared him in the DSS? Who cleared him in the National Assembly? And so on. You see all this take a bow and go, take a bow and go. One day we shall go and wake Oyenisi up to come and be our Inspector General. You know Oyenisi, the terrible criminal in those days in Benin when we were sick kids. One day we shall ask Amrobas to come and be our Inspector General of Police. Can we for once be a serious nation in this country?
It's actually an emotional and touchy one now for Nigerians talking about security. As we wind down, Commodore Ayuba, you know, listening to Stan-Labo, he said something about the will of the government to crush, you know, any kind of insurrection and insecurity and terrorism. Speak to that and tell us the things that you'd expect to see, if there are, or what the government is already doing that you want, you know, an enhancement on in the fight against terrorism.
Thank you, Sulai. It's indeed an emotional period for Nigerians, but I want to emphasize on the need for the government to come up with more robust responses to fighting terrorism. Terrorism is an international crime. It's a crime against humanity, and Nigeria has been a signatory to several conventions and laws, international laws. And Nigeria, being a very powerful nation, especially a leading economy in Africa, needs to lead from the front, needs to lead by example, needs to lead from the moral perspective, needs to lead by showing its disdain and disapproval for all forms of criminality, irrespective of the name in which it tries to masquerade itself. And by so doing, the government needs to begin to fish out all those sponsors of terror in Nigeria. There's no need cherry picking and choosing when to arrest some elements, leaving others to feel that they are being supported, to feel that they have the right to wreak evil and terror on innocent citizens. And so there's need for concerted effort. And of course, anybody who has been found to be in complicity with any terrorist, it's a moral question for such a person to stand down and step aside. So then, in fairness to the government, efforts are being made to counter this terror. But I say that beyond the military kinetic operations, there is need to revisit the concept of policing in Nigeria. The military is far stretched in about 32 or 33 states, operating in one form of task force, intervention force, or the other, to the extent that you find that every time the military captures or manages to defeat these terrorists, the vast spaces that are left behind, which we like to call liberated spaces, are being kept vacant. And therefore, what happens to the police? What happens to the policing actors who are supposed to cover these areas? What about the government structures? Why did we make local governments weak to even start with? Why did we sell strategic institutions in the name of privatization to keep all those facilities and all those structures empty? Go to Maiduguri and see the railway quarters in Maiduguri that used to be the home base of Boko Haram at inception. All the numerous coaches that are there are abandoned, and because the railway system had already died. So there's need for a re-engineering, a reawakening at the national level, and it has to be concerted. No governor should be seen to be fighting terror by himself, because security and defense is the primary and exclusive right of the federal government. However, community policing must be encouraged. Community policing must now be emplaced. If we had policing system in communities where these children are being kidnapped, they will have had some level of resistance, and of course, an alert system which will have brought some special reaction forces in support of them. So this is where we need to go. There's no need shying away. The legislature should do the needful by making sure that they bring out these acts affecting restructuring in all these ramifications. Thank you.
And Stan-Labo, quickly, if we can do this for a minute, the communities, because you've spoken so well and so much about the government and also the legislature, what should communities be doing, especially in northern Nigeria?
Well, security is everybody's business. Communities should ensure that the principle of see something, say something comes into play. As much as possible, we should see how we are able to support those who are busy engaged in the business of, protecting us. All right? We must play our own role as members of the community or as citizens all over the place. I want to believe by now that in most of the communities out there, there is an established protocol on reporting whatever incidents that are seen or whatever suspicious movements that are seen, be it your village head or whoever. And people are very much aware of this, of course, and also adhering to it. It is important. The situation now is getting from bad to worse. We must all now sit up and take ownership of our personal security. We must take ownership of our personal security now. Now. Don't wait for anybody. You hear a sound, peep through the hole from your window and try to know what is happening. Don't just sit there. Gone are the days when you hear a sound and overlook it. It's over now. Boko Haram now is everywhere in Nigeria. It's no longer a Northeast issue. It's everywhere now. Protect yourself now. Don't wait for any government.
It's a fine place for us to leave it, and I am hoping that we keep this conversation going. Quite a number of issues touched here, and also especially talking about the government to show the will and also listen to the people. If there is anyone in the government that has some questionable, matters surrounding his activities in times past or presently, Nigerians are saying, can you please ease this person out? And of course, I'll say many thanks for being such nice company, Commodore Abimbola Ayuba, and of course, Colonel Hassan Stan-Labo, both retired and of course not tired, for having time to speak with us here on Video Square Africa. Nigerians, at the moment, they're not happy, and these are not the best of times, and too many problems that the country is dealing with. These are surely a moment to see how the country can wax stronger by coming together and fight a common enemy. Keep an eye on here as we continue to break these challenges down and proffer solutions. Once again, thank you for watching. I'm Sulai. See you again.